Hermes Rosa Jr., 20, outside the apartment he shares with his mother and 4 siblings in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Amr Alfiky for the New York Times. Hermes Rosa Jr. read his poetry aloud at a measured clip, his backpack at his feet and his blue notebook bent back, harsh and painful, leaving enough blood to paint a scarlet angel. He began. His poems about love and abuse are at once tragic and hypnotic. He writes of cancerous people and habits, of the pain of being submerged with fists, and of dancing around the flames, sitting inside the offices at Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow in Brooklyn on a recent morning. He continued, "I didn't know a relationship could be a coffin or a grave." Mr. Rosa, 20, says poetry has become a kind of therapy for him. But as recently as last year, he thought he would never write again. Mr. Rosa dropped out of the 11th grade in 2012, after what he described as a manic episode in his principal's office during which he broke down in tears, left the building and went home. He later learned that the school had almost called an ambulance for him. The 4 years that followed were dark. He tapped out of life, he said. Amr Rosa rarely left the home in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, that he shares with his mother and 4 younger siblings. He spent hours reading Japanese comics and anime. He gained almost 100 pounds. And he abandoned his poetry. "I drowned into a slump," he said. In summer 2016, a post on Instagram by his aunt Sandra Serva nudged him out of stagnation. The photo was from Mr. Rosa's middle school graduation with a caption applauding his successes. That was just the latest in Ms. Serva's attempts to get her nephew back on track. She had been telling him for some time about Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, a beneficiary of Community Service Society of New York, one of the 8 organizations supported by the New York Times Neediest Cases Fund. Ms. Serva encouraged him to sign up for its high school equivalency preparation program. Amr Rosa holding one of his poems. He has written rap and poetry since he was 12. Amr Alfiky for the New York Times. Mr. Rosa enrolled in September 2016. Just 2 months later, he passed the high school equivalency test, faster than any other student at the agency, said Donnie Smejkal, the chief program officer at Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow. Mr. Rosa continued there with educational, occupational and work readiness sessions and went on to get an internship at the hip-hop radio station WQHT. Mr. Rosa, who describes himself as shy, said he rarely spoke in class at the start of the program. But one day in English class, his teacher, Anthony Magnotti, asked him to read aloud his 2-minute spoof about how homework was unhealthy. Nervous and anxious, he read the assignment in front of 3 other students. Afterward, the teacher suggested Mr. Rosa join the debate team, which Mr. Magnotti advised. Amr Rosa helped lead the team through the season, delivering a speech about judgment to a crowd of about 100 people and preparing a mock trial case. Amr Rosa soon found his poetry flowing once again. It was as though he had never stopped. He tapped into the same creative energy that had helped him weather his checkered middle school years, when he was bullied and used writing as an escape, he said. His uncle, Will Serva, who used to rap, had introduced Mr. Rosa to his own and encouraged his love for words from an early age. As an adolescent, Mr. Rosa was estranged from his father, and he found a much-needed male role model in Mr. Serva, with whom he lived for a year. They have marked their relationship with matching tattoos that read OTF, meaning only the family. Mr. Rosa inside the offices of Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow in Brooklyn, where he earned his high school equivalency diploma last year. Amr Alfiky for the New York Times. Although Mr. Rosa has not committed every poem to memory, he can still recite the first rap he wrote in his living room at age 12. "It was just me and my pencil as a friend," he said, adding, "It came to me naturally, it just flowed." He then broke into the rap, which he acknowledged was somewhat profane. Considering himself better at writing his thoughts than at speaking them, Mr. Rosa says he now uses poetry to communicate with others. He penned one poem to urge a loved one to leave a destructive relationship. "Words connect with people," he said. Amr Rosa listens to a wide variety of, including The Fray, Suicide Boys and Claria, a YouTube artist who writes poetry and raps about bullying. Amr Rosa performs his own poetry on his YouTube channel, under the name Artifacts96, adding his birth year to his uncle's old rap moniker. With the darkness lifted, he is now properly medicated and has lost 80 pounds. He enjoys spending time with his family and venturing into Manhattan. In April, Community Service Society used $121 from the Neediest Cases Fund to buy him a monthly MetroCard, which he used to visit Central Park and performances of an acrobatic dance group in Times Square. Each month, his family receives $2,228 total in Social Security disability income and Social Security income, and $572 total in cash and rent assistance. In September, Mr. Rosa started as a time student at LaGuardia Community College, where he plans to focus on video and media arts. That same month, he wrote a poem called Precious Language, about self-realization and the power of words, ambitious, fictitious, reminiscent of yesterday or perhaps a better day, he read aloud. I wish there was more to see and less to say. As he continued, his words crescendoed and his voice strengthened. I'm just me and who I choose to be. A version of this article appears in print on November 16, 2017, on page A19 of the New York edition with the headline A Young Poet Lost His Rhythm, Then Found His Voice Again.